Today is the first day of this January 1984 7-day retreat. And in this first talk, I would like to talk about listening to a talk, and with that tie into what is called the student-teacher or teacher-student relationship, the role of what is called the teacher. Talk a bit about authority. If there's still time after that, we will get to a koan. Whether one has been to many retreats recently, or this is the first one, can one listen to some words about listening? Listening to a talk. Talk like this is not an academic lecture about Zen or a koan or a topic. Academic here meaning drawing on one's knowledge about a topic and related topics, bringing in other people's knowledge about it, presenting it so that the listener can hear it and remember it and draw upon it himself or herself. This whole process of accumulation and dissemination which goes with knowledge, acquiring knowledge and disseminating knowledge. It is also not what is getting to be more in vogue right now in this election year. It's not a political speech trying to win adherents, get members for the center. If it were a political speech, you would need to hear other candidates. The other night we had 8 of them. Someplace each candidate as much time as he got. Sometimes 2 were talking at the same time. Try to put a point across. Try to talk convincingly, persuadingly. Talk here or out of retreat is none of this. It is looking at ourselves, at the way we live, the way we talk, think, act, and suffer. Looking at it not from a special point of view, but just looking at it, at what is there. Maybe using examples which come from one's own experience, but the example is not is not important. It may elucidate something, but what is important that one see for oneself what goes on in one's own life, with a mind that is free to see, not just bound to think about what is being said, to compare what one hears with what other people have said, other Zen teachers, other religious teachers, figures, and comparing in one's mind which sounds more convincing, attractive. Then the mind is occupied in a very limited quarter, very limited area of the brain in which comparison, remembering, choosing, all of this takes place. A very limited area of the brain. The listening that we're doing here, and not just you, but here, in talking, there's also listening, looking, is open. It's not specific. In spite of the specific examples, it transcends those specific examples. So, is it unreasonable to ask whether there can be open listening, which is also vulnerable listening? Vulnerable to the extent that one may be influenced, which is not the intention of talking and looking at things. I'm not trying to influence you, to take over these ways of speaking, thinking, looking. It's entirely up to you what you do with it. What we're all questioning here, and not just here, but in our lives from day to day, is whether there can be freedom from patterns, from conditioned, habitual, confining, and divisive patterns in human life and human relationship. So the listener needs to be very careful not to adopt things that are being said as the truth or an opinion or what Toni says in comparison to what so-and-so says, but to use this to look, to verify for oneself whether it is so or it is not so. And that may happen immediately. One may immediately see the truth of something, or maybe confused about it, because other ideas that one had come in, and that is confusion, when there is a whole choice of opinions to draw from, and what one hears sounds like another opinion. But one can sort of declare a moratorium on the whole issue and observe. Say, I'll give it a chance, I'll watch. I don't see it. And if it's very contrary to what one believes or thinks one sees, then bring it up in meeting by all means. People do that. Bring it up so we can look at it afresh and enter into it together, open it up, and any time that Toni goes too fast or is off on a tangent, say, wait a minute, this is not what I was asking. Go slow. Hold it. Let me look. Can we look at this together? Can we go over it? That's why meeting times take longer and longer. And attendance shrinks. I don't say this is why, but a smaller retreat makes this possible. I don't have as much income from it, but it's possible to really expand expand on working together, not getting more time for indoctrination. There's no indoctrination in this, and if you feel it is, please feel free to bring this up, because I have to look too all the time. Something habitual can creep in very quickly. But in listening to a talk, this openness, the openness with which one listens to the song of a bird, cracking of the ice, the breeze and these dry crystalline branches of the trees. One may not be open there either. One may feel, I wish it would thaw so that the buds would come out and I could see some green in this black and white landscape. Then you're not with it. Then you're not seeing. Then you only see the remembrance of spring last year, which is not what is here right now, underfoot, in front of the eye, under the nose, as it were. So this openness of listening is a state of being which is vulnerable. It's without a shell. Therefore dangerous. Dangerous in that one may adopt something. Something may sink in very deeply. As recently was pointed out to me, what a dangerous setup this is. Silence and then one person talking. Just one person. And then silence afterwards again, no immediate way of verifying it or discussing it if one doesn't agree. Actually, what we're asking here, I may take a step aside, is not to agree or disagree for the time being, so as to disengage that part of the brain which is constantly busy in our daily life, agreeing and disagreeing, yes and no, right and wrong, which keeps us in this shell. To disengage it and just listen. That's possible. Then as to the danger of one voice, which may have some intensity, energy to it, a passion, all of that is up for observation, what it does to one. There is such a thing. People have told us to me that in the course of the retreat, or maybe outside a retreat, they often hear Toni's voice saying this and this and this. How do you respond to it? Do you just do what you hear she says? Has she even said it that way? Can it come immediately under the microscope of observation? Is it easy to do what she says because then I don't have to look for myself? That needs scrutiny. This needs looking, opening up. Or is it just sort of a record that one has heard so much, and it's sort of, the brain has a way of playing records over, even if they're not playing anymore. It is some kind of a phenomenon that we can all observe, may not have any particular impact on our behavior. Something just in the background keeps turning over. The other day or evening I saw, maybe some of you have seen it, an amazing program in National Geographic of a woman who has lived for over 20 years with chimps in the African rainforests. It was so powerful, the closeness to the lives of those chimps. From generation to generation, you followed these first babies and the mothers and the siblings. You followed them. That life was there. Well, all night long I was living with chimps. It was very powerful. Perseverated in the brain. Did it have an influence on my behavior? I don't know. So just because one hears Toni say something doesn't necessarily mean one is influenced by what one hears. One hears, can one open a door quietly? Is that record just playing while one opens the door inattentively? That can happen too. Or will one look, how do I open the door? How does the hand and the lock and the sound and the whole thing function? Let me listen out of the curiosity that these chimps demonstrated. The little ones, unbelievable curiosity and freedom, because they have such a long time with their mother and they have to go out and earn a living for a long time so they can play and look. Here in a retreat for 7 days, you don't have to earn a living. You can look and observe and question everything. One of the things to be observed, which is very important, very crucial in our life, is this whole thing of authority. Following authority, making an authority figure out of somebody else. Out of habit. The feeling or the thought, which may also have never been tested, that this gives one some security, some safety. If I do what an authority figure does, then I can't go wrong. But the authority figure may go wrong, may not act out of clarity, compassion, understanding, be on a trip, may be on a trip. It happens all the time. So one is exactly not safe by following an authority. One has to look and think and discover for oneself. And that which is seen to be so is, no one can take it away. It is so. It's seen. If this happens, then one also sees that quote, teacher, unquote, who said some words like that is not different from oneself. It's not an authority, just, yeah, it's so. Or one sees, no, she brought some opinion in there. That was opinion. Then one brings it up. A tremendous desire and tendency within us to find someone to follow. An external agent. To help, to guide, to protect, to save. And because of this yearning for that safety and protection, we're led astray. Astray meaning away from this capacity that is there for a human being to discover for oneself, to see and understand for oneself, and be saved from one's own ingrained habitual opinions, prejudices, ideas. In questioning authority, connected with that is fear, deeply ingrained, maybe not a recent, quote, teacher's authority. May not be, the dependency may not be that deeply lodged, or else it hooks into a much older one, to parents, teachers, older teachers, and religious figures, gods, saviors, who, even though they were told to have a benign, helping way, were also to be feared. Their wrath was to be feared. And one had to toe the line, follow certain ways, rules, guidelines, precepts, commandments, in order to stay in the good graces. Which meant the behavior is observing oneself and others. Are you doing this right? Rather than observing profoundly one's need for exterior guides and saviors and refuges. If one starts examining that, one comes upon raw fear, loneliness, feelings of insufficiency, inadequacy, trembling, wanting to grasp. Can that come into the light of awareness? Can one face it, touch it, be that, without reaching anywhere for a railing? The railing is the escape. Then that closes up again. One can forget about the thing and rest with a railing as long as it's there. But grabbing onto railings is not standing alone on one's own 2 feet and clear about what's going on inside in this conditioned mind and body. Familiar with it, in touch with it, not fooled by it, and yet questioning whether conditioning can come to an end or can be transcended, where there is something other than the conditioned, habituated body-mind. Hearing somebody say there is something else, well, what does it do? Does one start believing in it as sort of a comforting thought whenever things get too uncomfortable, too desperate or painful? Then one evokes that thought or remembrance of somebody saying that there's something that is not conditioned, that is free, unlimited. But then it doesn't do anything for one. It's another thought, another conditioned thought. It has never been verified for oneself. And if one adopts that as a comforting thought, one is just as open to adopting all kinds of other comforting thoughts, which often come in a pattern of exploitation. The one offering them wants something in return. Following, obedience, money, work time, self-aggrandizement in one form or another. And so blind in our yearning to have comforting solace, words, or a person, a leader, we become the exploited. Because what drives us, the inner fear, loneliness, feelings of confusion and insufficiency have never been plumbed, have never been aired, brought to light, even if it kills one. Even the pain of it all kills one. Meaning killing all resistance, all running, all escape facing. And this no one can do for one, no one. There can be encouragement. One can do it together up to a point in a meeting where there's a one-to-one relationship. It's a poor word because it's not one-to-one, it's one. But one needs to do it for oneself, even if it's happened here or there at times. It has to happen again. One has to see it. One has to see the truth of oneself from moment to moment. Not that one seeing takes care for the rest of my life. Then it becomes a memory, which becomes a comforting memory. And it is the conditioned mind which further conditions the mind. The relationship here, I wish we would find better words than student and teacher. I like to chuck them, throw them out. But if one is cautious in the use and sees what the associations are and disconnects them. So it's just a word, useful for designation, for description, but not for all the emotional content of it, then we can communicate with these words. People very frequently mention certain fear and excitement and coming up to meeting, sitting in the line, moving up, heart starts beating stronger and maybe some queasiness in the stomach, fear, dis-ease. Sometimes people say, I don't know why, because you're not an authority figure to me, you don't remind me of past teachers, we have a different kind of relationship, and yet that happens. Well, why not just see that it happens? There it is. Has a reason. Are we connections to old fears? There's a total network of associations between physical happenings and thoughts and ideas. So these connections take place throughout our body. There's nothing magical about it. It happens. It's been useful for survival. And so here it is triggered while one is sitting in the waiting line. Can one allow this thing to have been triggered and run its course? Being with it, being that, without thinking it's wrong, it's an impediment. If I sat here calmly, then I could what? One always wants something else to happen, maybe to bring into meeting, or if one came free of all of this tension of fear, then maybe something could happen. This is all thinking, projecting, and not being with what's actually there. on the mat right this moment. No one can know what is going to happen 5 minutes later or so when you sit. I don't. We'll look at it. We'll talk, or we won't talk. You don't have to bring me anything. I'm not expecting anything, and I'm not just saying that to make you feel at ease. It is so. I do ask, do you want to bring up something, or do you have a question? This does not mean bring something that we can discuss. I want to discuss something with you. I don't. If there's something there, we'll look at it. If you have a question, we'll open it up. If you have none, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. You're not expected to behave or act in any particular way, except what's just there. And if there's separation from what's just there by thinking I should be different, that's what's there. Can we always take it right there at the root, right here? Not 1 inch, not 1 fraction of a millimeter ahead or behind. Ahead means thinking ahead, what I should. Behind means thinking of what was. And then there's a blur, therefore we live in a constant blur. Sometimes questions are asked. Usually, most of the time, I don't assert things, at least I don't think I do. But I ask, is this possible? Can this be seen? This does not mean you must immediately give an answer to that. It's our habitual way. Observe it, watch it. The moment a question comes, does one say yes or no? If you say yes or no, the power of the question is neutralized, is buried, dissipated. There's nothing shameful or awful or inappropriate to not have any answer. On the contrary, can one work this way? Asking a question and not knowing, which means the mind is open to look, to listen, to doubt, without knowing the answer. This part of the brain, which is the stockpile or the reservoir, the file of answers, of past answers, is not drawn upon, is left alone, or is not trusted. It does roll over very quickly, this, maybe that. But no, these are all old answers, all old thoughts, coming out of old memories. Who, or what is, or attending with a useless brain? Meaning that part which stores answers is not referred to, not relied upon, not taken refuge in. We take refuge in that. If we can think about a problem, we don't have to face the problem. we think about a solution, we don't have to touch and feel the pain and all the tensions of the problem. And yet the answer may lie in being in touch with that, not running away from it. No one can do that for one, no one. And most of the time we don't do it for ourselves either. We think. About nicer times or worse times to come, and leave this murky state which causes distress untouched, buried. Yet it's there and it does mischief, underground. So in coming to retreat, we mentioned last night our living in shells, in tight enclosures, the enclosure of self, my problems, my inadequacy, my needs, my rights, my painful past, my uncertain future. And all the physical discomfort that arises from this self-enclosure. At times there's great pleasure in thinking of nice things that happen, or imagining nice things that could happen, fantasizing. But these too come and go. What is this shell? What is this enclosure? This limitation? Wanting to transcend it is more imagination within the enclosure. But to question it, open it up, plumb it, dive into it, with a who or a mu or just an attention that is not conditioned. It is free to look, free to not know. Meaning not tied to any belief, opinion. Is it possible? Of course, when there's fear up in the waiting line, you can feel it. Who? Mu. That's mu. That's who too. What is it? If you say what is it or who or mu in order to get rid of it, that's not free. There's a motive there. It can be seen. That is divisive. There's a separation there. Me and what I want to attain, freedom from pain, is a projection into the future. But plunging into this state that's there, not knowing what it is, not verbalizing about it, and taking in stride the uncertainty that this brings, the scariness of it, or the boredom of it. What is it? Listening inwardly, questioning who inwardly, listening, open. Come what may, you don't know. No one knows. Future is already thinking, but this thing is here. What is it? Mu means nothing. But nothing is not an image or a concept. Nothing is no thing. that the mind can get hold of. So means I don't know. When you come up for a meeting, it's possible not to know that person that's there. Which means to first see all the images that one has of that person. See that they're images and put them aside. If that happens here and there in both of us, there's real communication. Between two human beings or two friends. Is it possible? Try it. Even if some old responses have already been triggered and the heart pounds, let it pound. Without any image about it, this is good or bad. And it will recover very quickly. The same living and sitting together, working together without images applies to your neighbor, the person next to you, the person with whom you share the dorm or the room, the coordinators, the person who rings the bell or has this job or that job in the kitchen, the supervisor. See all the images that we have which separate us from each other, create tension among us, or awe, unfounded awe. The awe is for the image. The image is not there, then they're human beings working together in an equality that is not an idea. Jobs may be different. Jobs aren't equal. One does this, the other one does that. Different functions. But when we have no images of each other, then we really why should I describe it? We will end here for today.